Betsy Ross sued the first American flag. When we view the flag, we think of liberty, freedom, pride, and Betsy Ross. The flag is how America signs her name. On June 14, 1777, the Continental Congress, seeking to promote national pride and unity, adopted the national flag, that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field representing a new constellation. The American flag flies on the moon, sits atop Mount Everest, and is hurtling out in space. Alfred's Alley is the nation's oldest residential street. The oldest house here dates back to the 1720s. The alley is named after Jeremiah Alfred, a blacksmith and land speculator who built and rented out many of this alley's homes. The tightness of the alley and the narrowness of the homes give the street almost a miniature dollhouse character. If one were to remove the wall facing the street at Jeremiah Alfred's house, you would see but one room on each story with a narrow and winding staircase connecting the floors. This type of house is called a trinity, and they abound in Philadelphia. The locals here also call them Father, Son, and Holy Ghost houses. This steel ghost structure outlines a spot where Benjamin Franklin's house was once stood. Washington Square was one of Philadelphia's 5 original squares as laid out in 1682 by William Penn's surveyor Thomas Home. Within 25 years of Penn's arrival, however, the square was being used as a potter's field and a burial yard for strangers in the city. The Christ Church is one of America's most historic shrines, and as such Philadelphians have always revered it. George Washington, Robert Morris, Benjamin Franklin, and Betsy Ross all worshipped in this church. At the Christ Church burial ground, hundreds of colonial, revolutionary, and post-revolutionary notables are laid to rest, the most famous of whom is Benjamin Franklin and his wife Deborah. 5 signers of Declaration of Independence are buried here, and the earliest tombstone dates from 1720. This place was reopened to the public on April 26, 2003, after being closed for 25 years. The area today known as Penn's Landing stretches along the Delaware River for about 10 blocks from Vine Street to South Street and encompasses the spot where William Penn, Philadelphia's founder, first touched ground in his greeny country town. After Penn's arrival, this area quickly became the center of Philly's maritime soul and the city's dominant commercial district. Today, however, Penn's Landing is a riverside park and the place where Philadelphians gather in the summer to hear music and on December 31st to usher in the new year. The Custom House in Philadelphia is one of the architect's unquestioned masterpieces. It shows a sensitive mixing of traditional and novel architectural forms. In Philadelphia, the most imposing of the great federal building projects was the Custom House. Begun in December 1932, it opened on November 10, 1934. Distinguished by the richness of materials, by the quality of its design and by decorative programs by major local artists, the Custom House is a fitting architectural monument to Philadelphia's status as the world's largest freshwater port and, after New York, the nation's busiest. What you see right now is the First Bank of the United States. Such a thing was needed because the government had a debt from the Revolutionary War, and each state had a different form of currency. It was built while Philadelphia was still the nation's capital, and Alexander Hamilton conceived of the bank to handle the colossal war debt and to create a standard form of currency. Up to the time of the bank's charter, coins and bills issued by the state bank served as the currency of the young country. The first bank's charter was drafted in 1791 by the Congress and signed by George Washington. In 1811, the Congress voted to abandon the bank and its charter. The bank was originally housed in Carpenter's Hall from 1791 to 1795. The neoclassical design of the bank was intended to recall the democracy and splendor of ancient Greece. When you are in the building, you can see an eagle which crowns a two-story portico. At the time of the bank's creation, the eagle had been the national symbol only for 14 years. The bank building was restored for the bicentennial in the year 1976. The Second Bank of the United States was built in 1818 and chartered for many of the same reasons as the First Bank of the United States. The War of 1812 had left a formidable debt, and inflation grew due to the notes issued by the private banks. President Madison signed a bill authorizing the Second Bank in 1816. Today the bank is a home to a portrait gallery. Considered as the most historic mile in the United States, Philadelphia's historic district covers Old City and extends from the Delaware River to the 8th Street and from the Arch Street south to the Spruce Street. Penn's Landing marks where William Penn landed in 1682. Old City extends from the Benjamin Franklin Bridge south to the Chestnut Street and from the Delaware River west to the 6th Street. William Penn had envisaged a beautiful waterfront for his city. However, the area became a scene of great commercial activity later on. Although the district is one of the oldest in the city, most of the historical sites that are preserved are located from the 2nd Street west to the 5th Street. The Carpenter's Hall, built in September 1774, hosted the First Continental Congress, which met to oppose the British rule. Carpenter's Hall also served as the headquarters of the First Bank of the United States in 1791. A few others to occupy the venerable rooms include the Bank of State of Pennsylvania, U.S. Custom House, Franklin Institute, and Society of Friends. Inside the hall, 8 Windsor chairs used by the members of the First Continental Congress are on display. Architecturally, the building is in the form of a Greek cross. The pedimented doorway with Doric details is very gracious and welcoming. 3 Palladian windows line the 2nd floor, under which are stone balustrades. The bell course, that is the band separating the floors, is unusual in that it is outlined in wood instead of brick. Also, one can see the early carpentry tools used for this construction. Philadelphia Stock Exchange was the first in the world to house simultaneously a stock exchange, maritime exchange, and a grain trading center. In 1982, this place was renovated to a combination shopping mall and office complex. This country was born here in Philadelphia, so the next time you're around here, make sure you visit the multitude of historic richness found within 1 square mile in the historic district of Philadelphia.